So, interestingly enough, this is kind of one of those double-edged sword episodes for me, because on one hand, I like how we spent a little bit more time focusing on the breakdown amongst the Rebellion and the Straw Hats, and just getting a feel for the wavering morale caused by Luffy's defeat. I mean, we all know as viewers he's gonna be fine. He's gonna be back in the fight very soon. But from the viewpoint of the Rebellion, like, they don't know that. Wano has struggled for so long that they practically need constant reassurance they can win. So even just hearing that Luffy lost is enough to make them waver. And in that respect, I do like how getting more focus on that allows Momonosuke's moment to feel even more powerful when he steps as a leader and tells everyone not to give up hope, keep fighting, keep pushing forward. We can still win this. Luffy will be back. I like all of that. Now, where it does encounter a problem, however, is that it does kind of make the slower. Even though I like how a lot of that was more built up, it does kind of make the slower pacing a little bit more blatant at this, as this feels like an episode where, for as epic as it was to see so many just heart-wrenching and emotional moments, and especially epic to finally see Sanji tag in a face clean. I can't help but feel we also could have gotten more, a lot more of other stuff in this fight. Again, with Sanji tagging into face clean now, I feel we could have actually gotten more of that fight in this episode, but we didn't either. So yeah, and it's just one of those things that kind of begs the question of if it's one of those things where it kind of takes longer one of those questions of if it'll take longer or a shorter expanse of time before Luffy's back on dry land, which I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with so long as Toei dedicates that time to something that matters. I don't want. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want Toei to just, in order to just expand stuff for the sake of filling in the gaps. They need to continue that thing of trying to actually improve on the content, not just filling in the gaps for the sake of filling in the gaps, so to speak. That I think that's the same trap Naruto Shippuden fell into, and yeah, the filler there wasn't really. I know people complain about the filler in One Piece a lot, but the less said about Naruto Shippuden, the better. And yeah, I like how just the back half of this episode just gives us more context of past events leading up to the events of what's going on now, and how it gives Momonosuke the resolve to know what he has to do and what role he must play in this stage of the war now that Luffy isn't there, but also showing just how much of an important influence Kinemon has been in his life up to now. And despite struggling to play the part of a father in the beginning, Kinemon truly had become like a second father to Momonosuke, and Momonosuke himself had played just as much of that role of a son for Kinemon. This episode, more than anything, I feel gave you more context for just how important the bond between Kinemon and Momonosuke really is, and this in itself is something I feel the anime has improved on over in the manga, in the sense where to Kinemon, Momonosuke is more than just Wano's future, but Kinemon himself is also fighting for the sake of Momonosuke's own future as well, because Momonosuke, he has to remember that even if he is the leader of Wano, the future leader of Wano, he has to choose how he lives his life as well, a future, and what future he wants to make for himself, a future where, and for Kinemon, he just wants Momonosuke to live in a future where he can live happily and carefree like Oden did, because that in itself is also a future they both share and want to see. And yeah, with Momonosuke's tearful speech, he definitely riled things up a bit and ruffled a few feathers, to be sure. And I feel Momonosuke's speech in itself, and just the effect it had on the crowd, also it kind of feels like it showcases the biggest mistake Kaido has made throughout this arc, which is, despite defeating Luffy, the feelings of hope and resilience that Luffy himself has inspired in others is not so easily broken. It's something that is going to maintain. It's something that is going to continue to live on even when Luffy isn't there. And it's I think honestly, like pretty much Kaido, I think, is the one who has underestimated this the most out of any antagonist Luffy has faced. Kaido, I feel, just underestimates the strength of human will, and just how far that can really take you. So, and because despite him obviously easily defeating Kinemon, he saw it with Kinemon himself. So he has to realize it's not going to be as easy. He's never going to realize it. He's going to lose this war if he doesn't realize that underestimating the human spirit and the human will is folly. That's the one thing that's always going to be a problem for him. With that said, the animation quality this week is interesting because for the most part, I think the animation is really great, and the animation hits all the points where it needs to. The scene of Sanji kicking the shit out of Kinemon, or kicking not Kinemon, Sanji kicking the shit out of Queen, and especially Kaido basically absolutely just destroying Kinemon. Those are all examples of how the animation did perfectly, in my opinion. Of not just now. But at the same time, despite all those great moments, there was also a couple small moments of not just maybe just a couple of repeating animation moments, but also moments where the animation looked a little janky or stiff, almost like there were a couple frames missing in certain moments and scenes. But at the same time, I'm wondering if it's hard for me to say if that was an intentional choice or not, as I saw this same phenomenon happen throughout this episode several times. So it's what was the janky, was those little janky moments intentional or not? I'm kind of thinking they were intentional, honestly. Also getting back to Sanji, this episode to me is a perfect example of how to use Sanji correctly. Because after hearing the news, he not only knows exactly what to do and how to respond, but he also knows that for however little it's worth, the words needed in the moment to lift people's spirits and to motivate them to keep fighting is what's most important now. And what he said to Chopper is correct. Even if Luffy was beaten, how many times up to this point has Luffy gotten back up? Stronger and more powerful than ever before. It is true. It's even if Luffy is defeated, it's not going to be permanent. And even before, although I will say that scene between Kaido and Kinemon, again, that was hard to watch just from how viscerally painful it all looked. Toei went hard on that scene. Just seeing the physical and mental anguish Kinemon was feeling is all on full display in this episode, and I loved it. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Analyze Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.